this month, the month of October, is domestic violence month, like awareness. And I went to National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. They have so much stuff on there. It is awesome. Like anything that you're looking for is on there. And they have so much information on how to help your area, how to help victims if you're one of them. Like they have so much stuff on there. I kind of combed through it a little bit because I was like, all the information's on there of like statistics and percentages. They're like pretty much nationally, but they do have them individually by states of the statistics and stuff. There's this thing, it's called the iceberg of domestic violence. And you see like the top parts that everybody's aware of, like homicide, physical violence, like severe is what they call it. And then like obviously rape or sexual violence, but all the stuff underneath, looking at the underneath things or things that we kind of hear all the time with, unfortunately, with home birth. Like if we're going to get real here, like these are actually very connected to home birth because these top things, first off, there's financial abuse, emotional abuse, coercion, and then victim blaming. We get victim blaming all the time, asking why don't they leave, or saying it's a private matter and it's not my place to intervene, turning a blind eye or pretending not to notice there's anything going on over there and that kind of thing. So honestly, when I read that, I right away was like, well, those are the top things that we see for home birth and out of hospital birth, like the top. Like people are being coerced and stuff. People are victim blamed. Anytime somebody brings up somebody had a bad experience, there's always somebody saying, well, they should have known better. Well, isn't it common sense? Like, well, they had their baby out of a hospital. They always do this way of victim blaming that I don't even know if they realize they're doing it. Like, I don't know if it's always intentional. Some things are intentional. Like some of them are point blank right there. They're very rude about it. Like you deserve it. But some people victim blame and don't even know. And then the turning the eye kind of thing, turning your head, it gets me about why we don't have any laws everywhere. We have no laws because everybody would just turn their head and just don't want to see it, don't want to deal with it. And that even goes to our lawmakers. So those were the things that like I seen and I was like, oh my gosh, looking at this and like, it's deep. Like, let me just, let me just talk about, really deep.
Do they talk about the connection between pet abuse and pet negligence in pets as well?
I didn't see it in there, but there might be an area in there. There's so many like it's broken down into like psychological, physical, financial, sexual. I mean, there was like so many elements and so many like links that you would go to with the statistics of stuff. And I don't even know because you know what? I actually know of people abusing animals and never getting turned in. Nobody ever doing anything. So I wonder if there's even any type of data just because people don't turn it in. But people really don't turn in all the time about being abused at home anyways, right. You know? So
I know that there's a distinct link between neglect of animals and children specifically. I'm not sure about adults, but there's definitely link of children. I mean, when I was a few years, I was working with animal hoarding, and there were a couple of seizures that involved not just seizing the animals because they were in such bad shape, but they also took the kids into custody for social services because their living conditions weren't much better than the animals. They were usually living in a house overrun with animals. Like having your kids live in a barn. It was just bizarre and terrible.
I actually liked what you were saying because I've seen some of that myself with, and it kind of ties in like Danielle said with home birth, because the same people who have these other issues and they're having their children kind of off the grid and they're keeping them kind of away from other people, they're isolating them, and it's a pattern. There's a lot of things that go with it, but I had noticed starting with home birth, it's not even the home birth that's the issue. There's often abuse, involved why someone would choose a home birth. Some things that I've seen is if one partner, the partner who is not pregnant and who is not laboring, has this birth plan in mind, and it involves being at home, emphasizing the dangers of seeking medical treatment because doctors will hurt you, or people are dishonest, or they just are out to get your money. And then they pick someone who's going to be as abusive as they are towards the pregnant person in a different way. You know, there's a lot of different things that go into that, but they're going to choose someone who's going to follow their script for what that person should be treated like. So you see that it's not even the home birth that's really the issue. It's having a partner who's invested in it because it goes along with the script of abuse that they lay out.
One of the things that I do want to kind of just go off from what you just said is a lot of people that are in the natural community they have a partner that doesn't want them to be on birth control. So they don't want them to see a doctor because doctors do say, what's your plans for after your baby? Or they say, hey, after you have your baby, you have to take so many weeks of not having sex. And a very controlled partner doesn't want to be told that they can't do that. And there's many that get pregnant in that time period right after they have a baby, and they're not even done healing physically, mentally, all the things that they went through. So that is actually extremely common. At home, natural. And some women that do go through and have a hospital birth end up pregnant in that period. They know they're not supposed to. And then they go off seeking the natural because they don't want to be, you know, like almost like shunned or shamed by a doctor because they didn't take care of themselves or didn't protect themselves at that time. But I mean, you're talking a controlling partner is not going to wear a condom. A controlling partner does not want you to do anything to, you know, you can't take anything, you can't do anything. Many of the natural birth control stuff that you hear of watching your cycle comes from women that are scared to take birth control because of their partners. That is really something that does happen. I've heard of it. I've bumped into people that have shared their experience. I can say when you go into the home birth community, somebody that only has 2 or 3 kids is not really full blown home birth. Because you're talking more, normally they have 4, 5, 6 or more kids. You're talking, they have a lot of children, and whether they want them or not, I don't even know. Like but I mean, it's kind of one of those that it's something that I've noticed. It's someone else controlling the narrative, and they look for somebody that fits right into that. I mean, when I was in the community, and I would go see these, you know, the midwives and all these families, because it was families. So women would bring all their kids and they'd be pregnant with, you know, their kids all over the place. I would hear them talking about stuff from their husbands or their partners. And they would say all these things. And I was like, wow, these are terrible relationships to be in. And the other women like supported it. You know what? You need to go home and you need to make him his favorite meal, and you need to have his house completely clean, and they were like doing these things that I was like, wow, that's really outdated of what a woman needs to do to please somebody that's like abusive towards her. Like, no, you don't need to do those things to keep them happy. And if one thing's out of whack, like suddenly, you know, maybe you can avoid getting beaten that night. That was one of the things that really, really bothered me. And I was pregnant. So I was kind of like confused and emotional and didn't really understand of like what I was kind of witnessing and being part of in this like circle. But it's so common that it's almost like the victims are sharing ways to like, here, let me help you tiptoe around your house, is what it was. Let me help you tiptoe around to make it look better, so you don't, like, you and your children are okay. And it's just not okay. So yes, that is one thing that I would say, like, I definitely agree when it comes to the out of hospital. There's a bunch of stuff about that. There's stuff about CPS. There's a lot of deep issues that have to do with why people want to be off the grid, and they use like the government and, you know, stuff like that. We hear like, oh, I don't want to have like be numbered and Social Security and like all this stuff, but it's deeper than that.
A lot of the time it goes along with the financial abuse too, because someone who's being financially abusive paying, whatever, some cash to a midwife, they're going to do that instead of be involved with insurance or go and buy it, because that you have to buy it before you are expecting, and you have to buy it for your whole family. So that's another way for them to withhold. If you have a partner too who's emphasizing things like you're going to use a certain way of diapering or feeding your child, I have seen partners get very upset if they think that anything is going to be easier for the person who gave birth, like, a disposable diaper. Oh, those are expensive. We don't need that. You can just do this. You can just use cloth diapers. That's what everyone has always used. Or you need to be feeding your child. And when they're emphasizing the benefits of one particular course, it really has nothing to do with them, but taxes another person. Like emphasizing chest feeding. That is time consuming. It's physically draining. It's one person responsible for that part of the care all the time. That's not, if someone's saying, I don't know if I can do this, it's adding to my anxiety. It's hard to do this. I spend my whole time doing this. And they don't want to reflect on what your time is worth. If formula would just make that easier, that's also abuse.
Definitely. I forgot about the aspect of, yes, controlling like how you feed your child and how you handle your child too. Like, yes, it's all forms of control.